Hello, my name is Ken Gee. I'm the founder and managing member of KRI Partners. Thanks so much for taking a minute to watch this video. If you're watching this video, you've probably already made the decision to invest in our fund or are seriously considering an investment in our fund and are curious about how the fund operates. In this video, I'm going to try to answer a few questions for you, such as what happens after you invest? How do you access our investor portal? How do we do our capital calls? What's our process? How and when do you get distributions? And how do they get paid? How do we handle our reporting? And finally, how do we wrap up the fund? How does all that work? So let me start by saying congratulations. If you have already made the decision to invest with us, welcome to our investor family. We're thrilled that you're here. The purpose of this presentation is to give you a general overview of our process. Note that we will make changes to our processes from time to time, small tweaks, but nothing will stray significantly from what I'm describing here. If there is a conflict between this presentation and the fund operating agreement, please know that the operating agreement is always going to control. Nothing I say here is going to serve to amend that operating agreement. All right, let's get right to it. What happens after you become an investor? So first, we'll countersign the agreement. We'll check your file, make sure we have an accredited investor verification form from you. We'll then add you to our general email list. You certainly can unsubscribe from that email list. Please be careful, though, because once you do, I cannot resubscribe you. You're the only one that can opt back into that email. The next thing we'll do is we'll set you up on our investor portal so that you can get access to everything that you need to see in order to know where your investment stands. I will make one request right up front. Please be patient with us. We're working very hard every day to find the next deal. It's a competitive market. Deals are tough to find. We pass on an enormous number of deals before we actually do one. So I always tell people we do kiss a lot of frogs before we find one that we like. So again, please be patient. We are working hard to get your capital deployed as quickly as possible. All right, next, let's talk about the investor portal. So once we enter your information in the investor portal, you're going to get an email. That email is going to ask you to create a password and update your personal information and other information in the system. Please do that. We also need you to enter your payment information so that we know how to send you money. That's obviously important. Everything that we do goes through the portal. All of our communications, distribution of K1s, all of your distribution information, our project updates, fund documents, all of that you'll find in the portal. It's always going to be there for you to look at whenever you want. Please note there's some sensitive information in this portal. Because of that, we do use two-factor authentication. Our cybersecurity folks tell us this is the number one way to protect your sensitive data, so we do that. It is required. I know it's inconvenient. I'll apologize up front, but it's really important to us that your data be secure. So you can expect a two-factor authentication requirement when you log into the portal. All right, next, our capital calls. So a couple of things about capital calls. First of all, once we do our first capital call, the fund will close to new investors. Our documents do allow us to have multiple rounds of new investors. In the fund world, it's called multiple closes. We have no intention of doing that at all. We're going to have one round and that's it. Why would we call capital? Well, there's three primary reasons. First of all, when we acquire a new asset. Secondly, when we're going to make improvements to existing assets. And then there's some other miscellaneous reasons why we might have a capital call to cover fund expenses and things like that. The commitment period in our fund world is 18 months from our first close that we're allowed to call capital for acquisitions, and we get another 6 months to call for improvements. It's a relatively short commitment period, but we feel strongly that you've made a commitment to us. We're going to work really hard to deploy your capital as quickly as we can. The process. The first notice that we send out, I call a heads-up notice. It's not really required under our documents, but I just do it as a courtesy. I want to give you as much time as possible to move funds around or whatever it is that you need to do to make the capital call that you know is going to be right around the corner. That time we usually send out some high-level information about the deal that we're contemplating. The second notice you'll receive will be the formal drawdown notice. It'll be about 10 to 14 days prior to the due date that you need to send funds. And then how you send funds, we always prefer electronic, either wire or ACH. But some people still like to send us checks, and that's fine. Whatever you prefer, we're certainly here for you, so we'll figure it out. The only thing I would ask is that you not send large checks through the U.S. mail because it's not as reliable as it once was. All right, I always get a lot of questions about when to send in money, how this works, so I thought I'd do a quick little example that I hope will clear it up. So let me make some very simple assumptions in order to illustrate the operations of the fund. So let's assume for a minute that the fund closes at exactly $15 million. Your commitment to the fund is $600,000. And let's say that throughout the life of the fund, we buy 3 projects, each requiring exactly $5 million in equity. Now, those are simple assumptions, but they're only simplified to illustrate the operations of the fund. So now when we get that first deal and we send you that drawdown notice, we would in total call $5 million for the first deal. That means we're calling 1/3 of everyone's commitment, including yours. So if your total commitment is $600,000, that means you would have to send $200,000 at the first capital call. Now, of course, all this is going to be laid out in the drawdown notice. You don't need to remember it from this video. I just want to illustrate how it works. The second and third deal, the process repeats, and at the end of the third deal, in my example, you will have sent in your entire commitment of $600,000, and it will have been invested in 3 different deals. Hopefully this explanation helps clear that up for you. All right, let's talk about distributions. The preferred return begins to accrue when we receive your funds. We pay our preferred return out quarterly, and generally it's paid out about 30 days after the end of the calendar quarter. We calculate your preferred return based on the net capital that you have invested, and that's really your capital contributions that you've made to that point, less any capital that we would have returned to you. I would just refer you to the operating agreement and the PPM for the distribution waterfall schedule. I won't go into great detail here on this video, but just know that our waterfall is known in the investment world as a whole waterfall. That means it is applied at the fund level, and that there are not multiple distribution or waterfall schedules for each type of distribution. So there's one waterfall schedule, and it applies to the entire fund. And you'll see that laid out in the operating agreement and the PPM. All right, financial and other reporting, they're always going to reside in the portal. And similar to distributions, we send these out about 30 days after the end of a calendar quarter. Our financial reporting package generally includes the balance sheet, profit and loss, rent roll. I always personally write a narrative update on our operations and renovations for each property. We are told by our investors that they really enjoy receiving this part of the report because it tells them what's really going on the ground. I will also send out ad hoc communications as necessary if there's something going on that requires me to just give you a heads up, or I want to make sure that you're aware of it. In between regular reporting times, that will happen as necessary. Our K-1s, I always get the question about when do K-1s get issued. It's an important topic for me. Being a CPA, I do not want to be the reason you have to extend your return. As such, we push our CPA firm very hard to get our K-1s out by the end of February, mid-March at the latest. That's our goal. Again, I do not want to be the reason that you have to extend your personal return. So we are very focused on getting these K-1s out early. All right, fund liquidation. Technically, under the documents, the fund's life is 6 years from the first close, and we have the option to extend that for 3 one-year extensions. Now, certainly our objective is to have everything wrapped up well before then. But something I want to remind you of, and that is when we sell assets is when you get the large distributions. Remember, we're generally a value-add investment firm. That means most of the money that's made on our projects are made when they're sold, and that is when the bulk of the cash gets distributed. So in my previous example, we have 3 different assets, and generally speaking, the larger distributions would occur after the sale of each one of those assets. We don't intend to hold all the assets for the whole life of the fund, which some folks do think that we're going to tie your money up for 9 years, and that is absolutely not the case. All right, any questions? You can reach out if it's administrative or bookkeeping. You can reach out to Sherry Trent. She's in charge of our investor relations. You can get her via email at strent at kripartners.com, or she's in our back office in Cleveland, 330-467-1985. You can always reach out to me if you have a question for me, KGEE at KRIPartners.com. Phone is 813-489-9666. It's always going to be the best way to reach me. And I look forward to your questions. Thank you again for watching the video. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you have more questions about how the fund operates, no worries. Just give me a buzz or shoot me an email. I'll be happy to get right back to you. Thanks again.